Living in Never Never Land. We know what's going to be necessary to bring the real change to this country. And we need change in the worst kind of way. And let me very clearly at the outset, the first year after I am sworn in as President of the United States, I will end this mess of a war in Iraq. You don't have to guess what I'll do. I will have all combat troops out within a year. We will end all combat missions, and there will be no permanent military bases in Iraq. We're also going to fight for universal health care, mandated for every man, woman, and child in this country. We so desperately need universal health care in America. You know, we have 47 million people without coverage. We have millions more who are terrified of losing their coverage. Health insurance premiums up over 100% over the last 8 to 10 years. We need change, and it will not happen unless we have a president who's willing to take on the drug companies, the insurance companies, their lobbyists. I am proud of the fact that among myself, Senator Clinton, Senator Obama, there is only one candidate who has never taken a dime from a Washington lobbyist or a special interest PAC. I don't want to be their president. I want to be your president. And I want to take just a minute and tell the story, which many of you know here in California, of Natalie Sarkeesian. Her parents, our family is here with me. They've been out actually on the campaign trail with me, mostly not to talk about me, but to talk about the extraordinary experience, horrible experience that their family went through when Natalie needed a liver transplant operation. Her dad had worked his entire life to support his family. He had paid his insurance premiums exactly the way he was supposed to, and when he needed the insurance company to do their part and pay for the liver transplant operation, they stepped aside, said no, they would not pay for it. The nurses, the doctors intervened on her behalf. They said no again. Finally, they and some other good people marched in front of the offices of the insurance company, and eventually they caved in. The problem is they caved in when it was too late, because she died a few hours later. Anybody who says to me, I'm supposed to sit at a table and negotiate with those people, never. We are going to stand up. We are going to fight for the American people. This is a perfect example of why we so desperately need a president who will fight for you, a president who will fight for the great middle class, a president who will stand up and fight for low-income families who are struggling every single day just to pay their bills. And by the way, I mentioned the organized labor movement a few minutes ago. The difference between living in poverty and living in the middle class with decent wages, decent work conditions, pension protection, health care coverage is being a member of a union. Because if you are a member of a union and can collectively bargain, you can have some level of financial security for your family. We don't know what's happening in America. The very richest Americans are getting richer. The biggest corporations in America are getting wealthier. And what's happening to the middle class in this country? What's happening to working people? What's happening to low-income people? What's happening to all those Americans who are terrified today that they're going to lose the one thing that they have spent their life investing in, their home? We have a huge mortgage foreclosure crisis in America, and we need a president of the United States who will stand up for workers, for homeowners, not for the massive lending industry in the United States of America. So what do we need? What do we need with health care? Here's what we need. We need to mandate coverage for every man, woman, and child in America. Second, we need to make certain that we ban pre-existing conditions. No such thing. No more in America. We need the mental health parity. Mental health should be covered exactly the same way that physical health is covered. Preventive care, chronic care, long-term care, all should be covered. You should be able to take your health care anywhere you go. If you get laid off, if you move, your health care should go with you. And I want to say one thing about what's happening here in the state of California, because I have seen these proposed budget cuts by your governor. Listen, I know firsthand. I spent a day walking with a healthcare worker who was a member of the SEIU. Her name was Elaine Ellis. This was outside of New York City, but she was enormously important to the men and women that she took care of every single day. They relied on her. She was like part of their family. They depended on her. And the last thing that needs to happen in the state of California is to have any of the funding that's necessary to provide health care for Californians cut. That funding needs to be there. We should not be cutting funding for K through 12 education. Who in the world in America thinks we have too much money invested in public education? This makes absolutely no sense. We know what needs to be done. We need to be investing in health care. We need to change the way we use energy in America. We need to deal with this moral crisis that's known as global warming. Al Gore is actually dead right. This is a huge responsibility that we have to our children, to our grandchildren. We need to cap. We need to cap carbon emissions in America. That cap needs to come down every single year. We ought to reduce our carbon emissions by at least 80% by the year 2050. We need to make the polluters pay and use that money to invest in wind, solar, cellulose-based biofuel, clean, renewable sources of energy. Now, one difference between me and Senator Clinton and Senator Obama is I am dead against the building of more nuclear power plants. Not only that, we should not be building more coal-fired power plants unless we have the ability to capture the carbon. Finally, we need a president who will say to America, we need to be patriotic about something other than war. It is time for the American people to be willing to sacrifice. We need a president, much along the lines of John Kennedy's famous inauguration speech. That's not what your country can do for you. We need a president who calls on the better angels of the American people, who says we are in this together, and what we do together matters. And we have to be willing to sacrifice. We have to conserve in our homes, in our workplaces. We need to drive different kinds of vehicles. We need to be leading the way for the world in dealing with this global problem that's known as climate change. We also need a trade and tax policy that doesn't simply enrich the richest Americans and add to the nations. We need tax cuts for middle class working families, to pay for child care, to pay for sending kids to college, to help families be able to save. We need to help lift millions of Americans out of poverty. 37 in this country live in poverty. Starting place is the United States Congress finally raised the national minimum wage. It's going to go to $7.25 an hour. It is not enough. The national minimum wage should be at least $9.50 an hour. It should be indexed to go up on its own. And there is no more important anti-poverty movement in America than the organized labor movement. And we must grow the organized labor movement. Listen, if you can join a political party in America by signing your name to a card, any worker in America can join a union by doing the same thing. That's democracy in the workplace. And we need to ensure that when it becomes necessary for the union to go out